Oh, what are you doing? Are you a good boy? Hmm? Oh, what you got? Oh, say hi. Hello, everyone. What's up, y'all? Welcome back to my channel. My name is Zoe, and I'm here today to give you some fall book recommendations that are not scary. I love reading in the fall. I think a lot of people do. There's just something really kind of nostalgic about the fall. It's so atmospheric that it's just fun to read books that also give that same feeling. So I wanted to do two videos. This is part one of a two-video mini-series, if you will, where I am giving you fall book recommendations. I wanted to be mindful that a lot of people don't necessarily enjoy reading super scary books, and even though I personally do, I also think it's important to give a variety of recommendations, and so I am going to give you guys 10 books that give all of the fall atmospheric vibes that you love that don't include very scary themes. So you're not going to get a lot of gore, you're not going to get a lot of like intense mystery thriller aspects. These are more books that still give off fall vibes but won't give you nightmares. I also made sure to include a good variety of genres. So I have some magical realism, I have some fantasy, I have some young adult, middle grade graphic novels, a whole plethora of options. Also, these are all books that I really love, so I'm excited to talk about them. Let's go ahead and just get started. So the first book I'm going to talk about is The Rules of Magic, and this is by Alice Hoffman. Alice Hoffman also wrote Practical Magic, which I actually have never read, nor have I seen the movie, but apparently it's very, very well loved, so I need to do that this fall. But I read this book last year, and I absolutely loved it. We follow the story of three kids growing up in the 1960s. Their names are Jet, Franny, and Vincent, and they grew up in a kind of witchy family, and the biggest rule that they were told growing up is that you must never fall in love. So we follow these three siblings as they grow up, literally from kids to adults, and their stories, and if they fall in love or not. It's very atmospheric, very much fall vibes. I love that it was set in the 1960s, so you kind of have a little bit of an older feel, different generation. I loved these three characters with my whole heart, and their stories were very unique. This was very well written, and I absolutely recommend picking this one up in the fall. It's perfect for October. Oh, I love it so much. Highly, highly recommend picking this one up this fall if you have not yet read it. The next book that I have here on my little pile, you probably have heard a lot of lately because it just came out and it is very well loved. That is Pumpkinheads. This is by Rainbow Rowell and Faith Erin Hicks. I just read this book and loved it. It is a super cute graphic novel, which we all love, easy, fun books to read. It follows the story of Deja and Josie, who every single year work at this pumpkin patch, and they're only kind of like seasonal friends, but they're seasonal best friends, and they work at this pumpkin patch every year from September 1st until Halloween, and this story in particular follows their very last day together. So they're seniors in high school, it's Halloween, it's the last time that they're ever really gonna hang out, and this chronicles their story on that last night, and it's just so cute. I loved the representation in this book. I loved their friendship so much. The pumpkin patch is so cool. I have never been to a pumpkin patch that is as cool as the one described in this book, and I want to go so badly. I wish this was real. It's so cute. It makes you want to drink apple cider. It makes you want to eat pumpkin pie and wear a flannel and go to a pumpkin patch. It's just so cute. I totally recommend picking this one up. The next book that I recommend picking up this fall is When the Sky Fell on Splendor by Emily Henry. I actually read this one back in March of this year, and I really enjoyed it. This book will give you Stranger Things vibes. It's more of like an alien-ish story, which I think is still fun in the fall because it's a little bit spooky, but it's not scary. This one won't scare you. In a nutshell, this book follows a group of friends who live in this small town in Ohio, and during one night in the summer, they hear this strange explosion, weird things start happening, and they think that it's somehow linked to an alien encounter. So they spend their summer nights figuring out what happened, what's going on, is this an alien? We don't know. I love the friendship vibes in this book. It's so fun following a group of friends like this story does, and then just also trying to figure out the mystery of this alien, what's going on. There are weird things happening to them. I just loved it. Small town, riding their bikes around. It really does give those Stranger Things vibes. I just feel like that is the best way to describe this book. Really fun for fall if you're not into necessarily like ghosty, witchy tropes. This one could be really fun to pick up if you are looking for a good kind of mystery, aliens, friendships. It's all good. The next book I recommend picking up is Nevermore, The Trials of Morgan Crow. This is by Jessica Townsend, and it's one of my favorite books of all time. I love, love, love this series. It's a fantasy middle grade. We follow the story of our main character, Morgan Crow, who is cursed. So everyone in her town, anytime something bad happens to them, like say her neighbor falls and breaks their leg, it's her fault because she's a cursed child. It makes no sense, but the whole town basically hates Morgan because she's cursed, and they blame everything on her. On her 11th birthday, it is told that Morgan is supposed to die. However, instead of dying, she gets whisked away by this magical man to this place called Nevermore, where she has to compete in these trials to become part of a society called the Wondrous Society. A lot of people compare this to Harry Potter. It's definitely not Harry Potter, but I get the comparison. It's a middle grade, it's magical, it's whimsical, it's so good. It's so good. I absolutely thought about including Harry Potter in this video, but that's kind of a given for this time of year, and if you're a little bit tired of reading Harry Potter, I know I shouldn't say that, who would ever get tired of reading Harry Potter? But if you are, I recommend picking this one up. It definitely gives you those same kind of nostalgic, fun vibes with awesome magical world building and friendship tropes. It's so, so good. Also, there's a giant magical talking cat, so if anything, read it just for that. The next book I have talked a lot about lately, that is because I read it in my Fat Rep video. This is The Undead Girl Gang. This is by Lily Anderson, and it's wonderful. This follows the story of a teenage witch named Mila who just lost her best friend to suicide. We jump into the story where Mila is really grappling with losing her best friend, and she decides that she's going to try and bring her back from the dead. In doing so, she ends up bringing back two other girls that had also died recently. So she brought back her best friend, two other girls that died in the high school, and now she's got three of these zombie-like friends to kind of take care of and figure out what to do with. It's the story of them sort of figuring out the mystery behind their deaths, as well as just following their friendship, character growth, all that good stuff. It was funny, it was creative, it was hard-hitting. I just enjoyed myself overall reading this book. I know I keep using that word, but I just really had a lot of fun reading this book, and I absolutely think it'd be a perfect one to pick up in the fall. The next book I recommend picking up is one of my favorite books of all time, in my top 3 favorite books, and that is The Immortalist by Chloe Benjamin. I love this book so much. It was about this time last year that I picked up this book, and I just have so many good nostalgic feelings whenever I even just like hold this book in my hands and look at the cover. It is such a good story. This is an adult fiction book. Right away, you jump into the story in 1969, New York City, where 4 siblings sneak away to visit this psychic. The psychic then tells each of the 4 siblings how they're going to die. And this information really has a huge impact on how they live out the rest of their lives. So this story is all about following each 4 of the siblings, what they do with their lives, what they do with that information, how they grapple with it, and it's just so good. I am a huge fan of stories that follow people from like beginning of their life to the end. The writing was phenomenal. The stories were so good, woven just seamlessly together. I felt something for each one of the characters. Like I saw myself in each one of the characters, and it just felt really special in that way. I feel like this book is kind of a huge commentary on just death and life, and knowing that death is at the end of life, and how you handle that and think about it. And it just really hit me so hard. I don't know, there's something just really special about this book, and I think the fall time is the perfect time to pick it up. If you read this one, let me know. I could talk about it all day. I love this book so much. The next book I have is another graphic novel that I love reading every single year around this time, and that is Ghosts. This is by Raina Telgemeier. This is a middle grade graphic novel, and the art is absolutely stunning. The representation is awesome. In this story, we follow two sisters, Katerina and Maya. They just moved to a new town in California. They're brand new. And the reason that they moved is because Maya actually has cystic fibrosis, so the air in that town will help her lungs. The girls soon meet a neighbor who decides to give them a little bit of the tour of the town and put a fun twist on it. He talks about how the town is haunted, but of course Katerina, the older sister, just doesn't believe him, doesn't believe in ghosts until one day she can actually see them. Like I said, this is a really fun book, really colorful. I love the representation of cystic fibrosis. I learned a lot reading about it. Also Day of the Dead. The family is Hispanic, so there's awesome representation there as well. This is really just like a wholesome, wonderful graphic novel. Definitely recommend picking up. The next book I recommend is Neverworld Wake. This is by Marsha Pessl. This is a young adult, how would I explain this? I was almost gonna say mystery thriller. It's a little bit mystery thriller. It definitely has some mystery thriller aspects going on. Magical realism. It's like Groundhog's Day in the sense that every day this group of friends has to live the same day over and over again until they figure out who killed one of their other friends. I think I have a lot of books like that on this list, a lot of just like tropes with groups of friends, but we follow just this group of friends that had to deal with the death of one of their mutual friends, and they don't really know how he died or what happened, but it really kind of affected all of their friendships. They all meet up one day and then find themselves in this loop of living the same day over and over again. I really loved this. This one is super atmospheric. Like, just the cover alone is such a good representation of kind of where you put yourself when reading this book. It's just this like dreamlike, foggy, cold state. I kind of loved seeing them live that same day over and over again, and the things that they went through and did and how it kind of changed them in a way. This one is awesome. Marsha Pessl is a fantastic author. I really enjoyed this and think it's perfect for the fall. The next book I have is Nightmares by Jason Segel and Kristen Miller. This is a middle grade series. I believe there's 3 or 4 books in the series. This is the first book, and it follows the story of Charlie, who is having a really hard time sleeping. He just moved into this giant creepy mansion with his father and his brother and his new stepmom, who he is convinced is a witch. When Charlie does fall asleep, he seems to have nightmares, and so we follow the story of him trying to kind of battle these nightmares out, figure out if his stepmom is actually a witch or not. This is a middle grade, like I mentioned, so it's pretty lighthearted. I actually really loved this book. I remember reading it in an airport when I had the worst experience I've ever had in an airport trying to fly. I was stuck in an airport for like 12 plus hours, losing all hope in humanity, crying all day. My back hurt. Like, it was the worst experience ever, and I just remember reading this and thinking, if Charlie can battle his fears and nightmares, I can get through this airport nightmare myself. So this one is really fun. I think it's a great book that you could read with your little bit older kids, maybe like 6 and up. I loved this book. I love this series. I've read 1 and 2, but I need to read the rest. I think that Charlie's a wonderful character, and I think just reading some of these middle grades sometimes refreshes your love for reading. Okay, y'all, I have one more book, and that is Sawkill Girls. This is by Claire Legrand. I will say that out of all of the books that I mentioned today, this one would maybe tip on the scale of scary. I personally read it about a year ago, and I can't remember being really scared. It has maybe like monster-ish elements, but in my opinion, monsters aren't as scary as like real life situations. So this one definitely dabbles more in like of a fantasy magical realism land. It's a young adult book that follows the story of 3 girls, Marion, Val, and Zoe. Let me just read the quick synopsises of the 3 girls. I think that'll explain it better than I could. So Marion is the new girl, and she's awkward, plain, steady, and dependable, weighted down by the tragedy and hungry for love that she's sure she'll never find. Zoe is the pariah, luckless and lonely, hurting but hiding it, aching with grief and dreaming of vanished girls. Maybe she's broken, or maybe everyone else is. Val is the queen bee, beautiful and privileged, ruthless and regal, words like silk and eyes like knives, a heart made of secrets and a mouth full of lies. This story does follow each three of the girls. It's told from the perspective of each of them. They all have very different personalities. I thought the author did a wonderful job of making each of the three voices very distinct from one another, their personalities distinct from one another. It's kind of them realizing that there's this monster in their town and they need to basically come together and defeat it. It's awesome. It's full of amazing girl power, and I really loved these three girls a lot. They live on this island called Sawkill Rock, and it's very atmospheric in the sense that there's like rolling plains and there's fog and cliffs and stuff like that. So I thought that the atmosphere of this book was really fall-like, and then obviously them defeating monsters is kind of fall-like too, so thought it would be a good one to include. Alright you guys, well those are all 10 of the books that I have for you. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know in the comments if you have read any of these books or if you plan to read any of these books, or let me know of a book that I didn't mention that you would recommend reading this fall that isn't really that scary. I would love to have some more recommendations on my list personally. Thank you guys so much. I love you. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day wherever you are, and I'll talk to you soon in my next video. Bye!